Thank you for tuning in once again to his Vine and Fig Tree podcast. My name is Kurt Olson. I'm your host, coming to you on August 27th, 2025. And four things bringing to your attention here today. The first one is Scotland, pretty much guaranteeing that folks have not heard of this unless you spend a fair amount of time on social media. Um, Maya Summers, a 14-year-old girl from Scotland, became famous, not of any reason of her own other than the fact that she wanted to defend herself from the story indicates Muslims in Scotland, and it has kicked up a firestorm in the UK and elsewhere in Europe about the migrant crisis that they have that specifically involves Muslims from Africa and the Middle East. And it also involves the issue of being able to defend yourself. So, Maya Summers, Maya, Mayah, last name Summers, Sommers, um, Scottish, 14-year-old girl. And she was in a situation where she felt she needed to protect herself. And she had a knife and an axe. So it kind of conjures up some images to um, centuries long ago when, there was fighting. Many times just males, but occasionally you'd have a female involved in the fighting, and battle axes and shields and all that other stuff going on. But in this case, this 14-year-old girl simply wanted to defend herself against people who she thought could harm her, and it is against the law in the UK, as Scotland, to have weapons on you that allow you to do so. And just some really interesting stuff here. This is a Microsoft News piece, and I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm going to link it in the description to the podcast. But just give you a general sense of the situation. On a Saturday evening in Dundee's St. Anne Lane, police were called after reports of a girl wielding a bladed weapon. According to witnesses, the confrontation involved migrants who had allegedly been harassing her, with one reportedly recording the encounter. Police in Scotland later confirmed that a 14-year-old girl was charged and would be reported to the authorities. Yet instead of condemnation, Summers' arrest ignited fury online. Critics argue that a child should never have to resort to carrying weapons to feel safe. In modern Britain, however, pepper spray and even basic self-defense tools are illegal, leaving vulnerable young women with no means of protection. And the episode has come to symbolize what many call a systemic failure across Europe, the instability or unwillingness of authorities to shield their own citizens, particularly young girls, from migrant crime. And if you look throughout Scandinavia and Western Europe, the assaults on women are in many cases, not exclusively, but in many cases, are being committed by migrants. And it is becoming something that is causing some of these really right-wing parties in France and uh, England and other parts of Europe to the population is is jerking to them, at least on a political side, because they're frustrated and they want answers to what's going on with migrants in those countries. And this story kind of captures not just that, but people should have a right to defend themselves, especially when they feel threatened. And Maya Summers is not a criminal. She's a heroine. Um, Secondly, we need to have, to some degree, Donald Trump is doing this, and to a degree, he's not. Um, I've been very critical in the past here about our country's response to China, the Chinese Communist Party. And on Monday of this week, the president made a statement that he was going to allow 600,000 Chinese students in the United States. And then that evening, on an interview with Laura Ingraham, um, Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, makes the following statement: if we didn't allow 600,000 Chinese students into the United States, 15% of American colleges and universities would go belly up. Well, I just did some very cursory research to try to find out what are the biggest what U.S. universities have the largest population of Chinese students on their campuses. Check out some of these names: New York University, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, University of Southern California, Purdue University, Columbia University, University of California, Berkeley, UCLA, the Carnegie Mellon School of Business, the University of Michigan School of Business, the Duke School of Business, Michigan State University, Northwestern University, the NYU School of Business, the Indiana University School of Business, the MIT School of Business. Those are the names I came across when I simply did a cursory search on Google for uh, U.S. college or U.S. universities with large Chinese student populations. And so to hear Team Trump tell the story, if we don't allow 600,000 Chinese students on American college campuses, 15% of them, of the universities, and some very prestigious names that I just mentioned, could go bankrupt, could go belly up, simply because they wouldn't have that cash flow coming in from China. And I'm left asking myself one basic question: is the return that we get, the benefit we get from having 600,000 Chinese students on American college campuses, what's does that benefit overcome the potential risk of these students being agents for the Chinese Communist Party? And we may never know the answer to that question, but we do have some indication of some other things that have been happening in our country. And Shall we go to Michigan and Texas? Okay, so this would be back in June. There was accusations of agro-terrorism connected to a couple of students who were connected to the University of Michigan. And I'm just going to read just a few opening paragraphs of a story. This is back in June, just shy of about 2.5 months ago. A citizen of the People's Republic of China was arrested and charged with smuggling concealed biological material into the U.S. from a university in Wuhan. Where have we come up with that name before? The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Michigan announced Monday. Of course, this was back in June. The arrest of Cheng Wang Han, who is currently pursuing a doctoral degree from the College of Life Science and Technology at Zhejiang University of Science and Technology in Wuhan, China, is the third such arrest in the last few weeks related to smuggling of biological agents into the country involving the University of Michigan. Quote, the alleged smuggling of biological materials by this alien from a science and technology university in Wuhan, China, to be used at a University of Michigan laboratory is part of an alarming pattern of threats that threatens our security, said U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, Jerome Gorgon, Jr. in a statement. The American taxpayer should not be underwriting a PRC-based smuggling operation at one of our crucial public institutions. Han is alleged to have sent 4 packages with concealed biological material to the U.S. in 2024 and 25. The packages were addressed to people associated with a laboratory at the University of Michigan. And more recently, this happened Monday. No, yesterday, I'm sorry. Chinese doctor accused of stealing confidential U.S. funded cancer research. This was published just yesterday, in fact, last night, by the New York Post. A Chinese doctor was busted at a Texas airport for allegedly attempting to smuggle U.S. funded cancer research back to his home country and could face federal charges for the brazen theft. Yunhai Lee, 35, was nabbed at George Bush International Airport in Houston on July 9th after Border Patrol discovered the sensitive confidential medical records on his laptop during an inspection ahead of its flight to China, the Harris County District Attorney's Office announced Monday. The Chinese national, who was employed as a researcher at MD Anderson Cancer Center since 2022, was reportedly working on a vaccine to prevent breast cancer from spreading before abruptly quitting on July 1st and uploading the nearly completed research to a Chinese server on his computer. Okay, this guy is an adult, but working in the United States and acting in the best interest of China, not the United States. And in the case of Michigan, you have 3 different Chinese connected students connected to agro-terrorism. I ask the question again. Is the benefit of having 600,000 students on the universities of the United States, does that benefit outweigh the potential loyalty these people have to the Chinese Communist Party? And we don't know that unless these people have been fully vetted. And we know who they are, who they're connected with back in China, who their parents are, what they do, all that stuff. But for me, even with these prestigious universities named with large Chinese student populations, I'm sorry, suffer the penalty. These universities obviously hit a point where they made a decision: we have to have Chinese students on our campuses for whatever reason. And did they not think this time would happen? Thirdly, I want to just compliment the likes of Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin is the EPA director under Trump 2, and he has come up with some amazing information in the early months of his leadership there that point to nothing short of scandal after scandal after scandal. The first one we learned was how, in the waning weeks of the Biden administration, they were just approving all kinds of green energy projects that had no business plans, had nothing to prove its worthiness, and they were just throwing money hand over fist at these projects. And late last week, there was a story that surfaced um, where, just reading the headline here, Zeldin exposes a $20 billion Obama Biden EPA slush fund. Now, Lee Zeldin went on a podcast as a guest and explained this finding. And the genesis of this is Project Veritas. Project Veritas was originally connected with James O'Keefe. They kind of had a falling out, and O'Keefe did some stuff on his own. But Project Veritas still does the same kind of investigations, and they found out that there was some money that was dumped into the EPA, and there was some money connected to it. And when Lee Zeldin was under confirmation hearings, he was told by Republicans, get to the bottom of this. Well, the bottom of it is the following. Um, Once in office, Zeldin said his team quickly discovered an entrenched network of left-wing corruption. Quote, basically every time we turned a rock, we found something under it that was either filled with self-dealing and conflicts of interest, unqualified recipients, or reduced agency oversight. According to Zeldin, the mass infusion of cash from the poorly named Inflation Reduction Act, which dumped tens of billions into the EPA. Well, quote, well, EPA didn't know how to spend the billions of dollars, so they decided to park 20 billion at an outside bank and have that bank send the money through 8 pass-through entities. These pass-through entities were created with very little oversight or accountability, and it was there just to be wink, wink, nod, nod. You can have this money. And it was basically a slush fund for people connected to Obama and Biden. And Lee Zeldin went on to explain in this podcast that they are pursuing through the courts the legal means to obtain that money back. And so it remains to be seen if that happens into in its fullness. But Lee Zeldin has been just an amazing force in just uncovering and transparency and just realizing that his agency was a a source for an awful lot of self-dealing, lack of transparency, a lot of money throwing flowing through it with very little um, purpose. Oh, we know this plan's going to succeed, or in some cases, as this reveals, or as he revealed on this podcast, um, a pass-through entity which basically said, "Go spend that money." So um, I will include that in the podcast description as well. The final thing that I want to bring to your attention on this podcast this week are what is called the 80/20 issues. Let me cite some examples. Three quickly. Crime. As most people know by now, Donald Trump put the National Guard and took over Washington, D.C., reduced crime over, 2 weeks, 16, 17 days, something like that. And he's now talking about doing that in Chicago and elsewhere. And he had the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, who has delusions of grandeur in wanting to be president of the United States. But let me also just say, Pritzker, his family name has a lot of money in back of it, and he could probably bankroll a presidential campaign all by himself. But Trump had J.B. Pritzker basically defending crime in Chicago. And just as Democrats have done with crime in Washington, D.C. And then on Monday, Trump came out with yet another executive order, this time banning desecration of the American flag and saying anyone caught doing so would face, well, I don't know if it was fines, you're in prison, whatever it was, doesn't matter. Desecrating the American flag burning, has been ruled constitutional multiple times by the U.S. Supreme Court. But this is an 80/20 issue, and I'm going to get to that here in a second. The third item is mortgage fraud. So, mortgage fraud is now an issue in cases involving New York State Attorney General Letitia James, U.S. Senator Adam Schiff, and a Federal Reserve Board member who Trump is trying to get replaced, or at least my understanding is, and there's an accusation of mortgage fraud there. And if you go to some of the left wing media, they have Paul Krugman, an economist, saying, well, mortgage fraud is the equivalent of just cheating on a test. If an average American was found to have committed fraud knowingly on a mortgage application, the book would be thrown at them. And yet we're being told that, oh, it's no big deal if Letitia James, if indeed she committed that or did that, if indeed Adam Schiff did that, if indeed this Federal Reserve Board member did that, no big deal. So basically, what's happening here is Trump is picking issues that he knows the American people are 80% behind him on: crime, desecrating the flag, and mortgage fraud. And he's basically putting Democrats in a position where they defend this activity because this is what the left does all the time in the Trump era. They knee-jerk react over everything that this guy says. Trump could announce tomorrow that he had found the cure for cancer, and Democrats would would just herald the benefits of cancer. It, no matter what Trump says, these people automatically knee-jerk react and have to say something that is opposite. So don't wonder why the Democrats are still scrambling now. What? We're heading toward 9 months after the election. They still don't have a clue why they lost. And Donald Trump, by picking these 80-20 issues, he keeps reminding the American people why they dislike Democrats today. And there was recent research that indicated that in the 30 states that require identifying a political party, there are 30 states that do that in the country. 4.5 million Americans between 2020 and the present have changed parties from Democrat to Republican. And Democrats have lost ground in each of those states. So this is where we are with Democrats who don't know how to think. I mean, and let me take that back. It's not that they don't know how to think, it's that their ideology has so captured their mindset that they don't know how to respond when these issues pop up. So that's all I have for you this week. Um, dropping a new column on Sunday. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. For those who read my columns, watch the podcast, thank you for doing so. I'd encourage you to share with through email and other avenues. And until next time, God bless and goodbye.